Well, hello everybody. As you were told, I'm Jacqueline Ackerman or Jackie. I've been with Pearson for a long time now. I hold a senior position in examining, and know a lot about assessment. So I've been asked today to basically go through some exam insights with you for the summer exams. Basically, my presentation is going to revolve around exam technique rather than content. And I want to look at really why candidates that were successful in the summer, why they were able to score well, and really focus on that. And I'm sure you want to know, what is it that's perhaps stopping candidates from performing better. So we'll look at paper 1 and paper 2. I think we'll concentrate, I've said 30 minutes on each paper, but I think we'll concentrate a little bit more on paper 1. We do just have the hour. So whilst I've said, there are 2 elements to the presentation, I think we'll focus a little bit more on paper 1, but we will be moving at pace, and the comments that I'm going to be providing are going to be fairly generic, so they can be applied to really whatever topic your candidates studied or are studying. I'd like to say there's going to be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of each paper's presentation. We'll see how the timing goes, because like I said, it is only an hour. So we might be a little bit snug on time. But really, the experience of this year's exam did suggest that candidates do need a little more guidance on paper 1. So that's why we'll spend a little bit longer on that than paper 2. There aren't any published resources, as far as I'm aware, for this specification. So in the next slide, I've actually put a link here for the website. So I want to actually just show you that. So I'm going to try and just go and show you that. So hopefully I can share this, or I've got somebody that that can perhaps help me if that's not going to work. So we'll have a look. Can you just let me know if we can see this slide now? It's the Pearson slide, so you should be able to see that. Fina, we can see the Pearson slide. Yes. To see just quickly here the qualifications at Pearson website. Now I'm really going to recommend that you do familiarize yourself with this. I'm sure lots of you have, but if you're new and you haven't had chance to do this, you're going to find this so helpful. Okay, so just make sure you go on and you have a look at these teaching and learning materials. Now, if you go on to the guidance, you've got here the getting started guide. Now, this is fantastic, and this it's a really detailed document that will really kind of take you by the hand and guide you through how to get started if you are new to this. And actually, it's something that as a teacher, I always sort of dipping back into it anyway, because you're not going to have time to read it all at the start. We're all really busy, but it's great for just picking up little tips and tricks as you go along. But also, the other thing I wanted to point out to you is the scheme of work tab here. And you've got just basically they're fully editable. You've got schemes of work for paper 1 and paper 2, and it can just get you going. And they're really, really useful for just getting you started, helping you plan it out. So you make sure, we all know how time can get away with us, and you can start feeling the pressure just before the exam, perhaps if you haven't got through all the content. So these are really good especially for the first year of teaching it, to really have there as some support. And we also offer, teaching activities and things like that can just really help you when you're first starting out on that. So please, I can't recommend enough, go on and have a look at these teaching and learning materials. They're there to support you. Okay, I will go back to the PowerPoint now. Back on the PowerPoint there. So you've got those useful links. You can also go and have a look at past papers, sample assessment materials, sample assessment mark schemes, which are all really, really useful. Okay, so let's have a look at what successful candidates did in this year's exam. I hope that my comments are going to be phrased in such a way that you'll be able to apply them for future exams. So what I'm trying to say is that successful candidates did this. So you know what successful candidates did, rather than to be successful candidates should do this. I'm trying to sort of give you some really nice examples of what they actually did this summer. So forgive me if I misspeak, but that's what I'm trying to say. Successful candidates did this. So let's begin then. Here are the things which successful candidates did this summer. Well, first of all, it's vital to answer the right number of questions, even if an answer is really sketchy and they think I absolutely don't know this. Have a go. Really encourage them to try something. A 0 on a question has got a really big impact on the overall mark. So in this year's exam, successful candidates generally avoided not answering a question. You know, they had a go. And they attempted it. Also, they thought about what each answer was worth in terms of the mark. So they were able to plan their time. It's really important that they don't spend too long on those sort of lower tariff questions. So they really thought about what each answer is worth in terms of the marks they're going to get. So they knew how many examples had to be given. So what our successful candidates did this summer was they generally avoided those over lengthy responses to questions that have just got a small number of marks. So it's really about them having a very clear idea of how long answers ought to be. Okay, they also took a close note of any dates given in the question. Now, the dates are there. They're, you know, we often give those to save the candidates having to do too much work. So successful candidates will take a note of the dates to avoid, just to avoid writing about what might have been done in class rather than what the question is actually asking. So that's really important, not to go outside of those dates, because obviously they're not going to be able to be marked on that. Now, high scoring candidates also demonstrated an understanding of what each question type required. So that is really important. Success in the exam often revolved around knowing what to do in the answer, almost as knowing about the history. So just to recap then, answer all the questions, don't leave anything blank, really know how long to spend on each question, think about what each answer is worth in terms of the mark, and they should really know for different types of question how many examples need to be given. So that will give them an idea of how long answers ought to be anyway. Look at the dates, don't go outside of the dates. And have a very clear understanding of what the different questions are asking you. So apart from the multiple choice, there are only 3 types of question on paper 1. So it's really about what I guess what I'm trying to say is, the successful candidates had the information, but it's not just about having the information, it's knowing what to do with it. So both are really important. Clearly, they've got to know the history, but what do they need to do with that in the exam? Okay. So for each question that we look at, I'm going to put up a ponder slide. So really asking you to think about what the candidates ought to have done to score well, what they might have done that might have hindered their performance. Now, I'm not going to ask you to feedback because we don't have time. Just have a think about what you think they need to do to be successful, and I'll let you know if that's what we saw in the exam. Now, question A, bearing in mind that we're looking at paper 1 now. So question A is your multiple choice question. So basically for question A, either they know the answer or they don't. So you really don't want them spending too much time thinking about it. And if they really don't know, just guess. I mean, they really shouldn't be leaving that blank. Just have a guess. There's no penalty. Make sure they know that, because we did see some blank answers and we wondered, you know, do they think there's a penalty for getting it wrong? There's no penalty for getting it wrong. So it really, if they don't know, just have a guess. Okay, so if we have a look at the slide for question B, I'm just going to give you a minute to have a look and see what was the key to success on this question and what common mistakes did candidates make. So have a think about that. I'll just give you a minute to have a look at that. So basically the key to success here is for them to appreciate that there are 2 points to make. They don't need to make any more, certainly not 3. There are 2 points. They do not need to write in full sentences. They don't want to be spending a long time on this question. This is not an explanation. It's not needed. So if the answer, basically, if the answer can be given in 2 words, that's enough. They will sort of get in, get this done, and move on. So make sure they don't give more than 2 points, get it done quickly. It's a 2-mark question. So you really, the most successful candidates are not going to be spending long here. They certainly don't want to be spending longer than 2 minutes on it. Okay, have a look at this and have a think about, I'll let you just have a quick read through. Got 2 answers there, and have a think about which answer scores higher. I think this is from this summer's exam. Actually, you'll probably recognise that in the B question. So hopefully you can see here with the answer A, this is typical of a candidate that is just writing far too much for the question. Both of these answers get 2 marks. So you can see, you know, the candidate doing answer B is going to have spent a lot less time. So key points here, just let them know to be successful. They don't need to write in full sentences. If they can do the answer in just in a few words, even 2 words would be enough. They don't need to give more than 2 points, and to get it done quickly. Okay, have a bit of a ponder about question C. I think we're going to, again, the example is from the summer. This was the breakdown of law and order, I think, in the new state of Bangladesh. We'll see it come up in a minute. But like I said, it's generic. So that will just be the example that we'll use. But what was the, you know, the key to success on this question? What did we see that successful candidates doing in the summer? What common mistakes did they make? I can see people are popping questions in the chat. I'll try, we will have a break between the 2 papers, so I'll try and have a little look then. But can I point out that if you do have something, your local Pearson representative would be your great, you know, port of call to ask anything anyway. And certainly you'll get a very quick response if you ask Pearson, and email them as well. So if we don't get on to your question today, please don't just think, oh, I can't get an answer. You can just, you need to just ask your Pearson representative to help you. Okay, so let's have a look then at this 6 marker and what we saw that was successful and common mistakes. But first of all, can I ask you to have a think about what you think of this answer? Just have a quick read through. Like I said, it's the question from the summer. What level do you think this would have got? Well, hopefully you've picked up that actually this is a very poor answer. It doesn't address the question until the last sentence, and then we just a hint. So this would be a level 1 at best. So let's have a look at what the key to success was in the summer. It's basically appreciating that in that question, explain why there was a breakdown of law and order following the establishment of the new state of Bangladesh in 1971. It was appreciating that the question was not about what the breakdown of law and order was, but why it existed. And an explanation of why the cause brought about the breakdown was necessary. So it wasn't enough to say something like there was a shortage of food. What successful candidates did was explain that the shortage of food caused people to behave outside the law. So most successful responses made sure they didn't waste time. They did it by going straight into the answer. They used the words of the question. So, you know, it's a really good teaching practice to get them to do that. So in this instance, they can go straight in and start with, there was a breakdown of law and order, and use that word because, and then they're going to really start addressing the question straight away. So it's really that key to them not saying what, not about the breakdown of what the law and order was, but why. And it's really that key word why there. Okay, have a look at this one. Just have a read down through this. This is what we would expect. Okay, so this is a level 3. So just have a read here and see what it is that a successful candidate would be doing. Okay, so it's taking those reasons and explaining why. So it's really successful candidates really know what to do with what they know. They know what to do in each question. Okay. Right then, so question D. What was the key to success on this? I'll give you a couple of minutes to have a think here. What's the key to success? What common mistakes did candidates make? So just have a ponder. And then we'll discuss how an answer needs to, you know, discuss importance without just a load of narrative. Okay. So the key to success was appreciating what the question was asking you. Gina's main success in addressing the problems faced by the new state, sorry, that should say Bangladesh, was the relief fund to help refugees. It was not about the relief fund to help refugees. It was about the success of the relief fund when compared to at least one other measure. So to score highest marks, there had to be some judgment made, which included a comparison of success. So it's really about looking at what they need to do to get those highest marks. And it's really, for this D question, they have to make a judgment. And to be able to make a judgment, they've got to do that comparison. And it's really about that precise, using that precise knowledge. So they might have lots of knowledge, but what are they choosing to say to help them answer this question? So the response should consider the success of each measure in the main body of the essay. What they don't want to be doing is just write a chunk of detail of what each of the events is that they're talking about, and then at the end sum it up and say it was successful, because they really want to weave that judgment throughout for those top marks. So have a look at this paragraph here. This is an explanation paragraph. And they need to do this 3 times at least, or, you know, to get 12 marks or more. We would be looking at this being done 3 times. And this is really how an answer can discuss the importance without starting with a load of narrative. And I'll just show you this slide here, which gives you 2 judgments. So I'll let you just have a little read of that. One is no good. It's just a repeat of what the answer said. But the second is comparative and rewardable. Now, earlier, I did show you the, so if you've got any questions on the paper, please pop them in the chat as I'm talking now, and I will try and have a look. We'll have a, I put in a 5-minute break. I think, well, I'll try and do that, but there is something I wanted to talk to you about, and that's the feedback that you get from the principal examiner. So he will send out to your school the examiner's report, and you can access that on the website as well. So you will get an examiner report for each of the papers. So there's just a few things I wanted to go through for paper 1. I'm just going to talk in general. The examiner report, he goes through the comments on individual questions as well. But if we look at just some of the general comments, and some really good news, because there were some excellent responses on this year's paper, and the overwhelming majority of candidates were able to complete the questions with few signs of problems relating to time. So it does seem to be that is something that is getting really well taught now, how to manage the time in the exam. When you're preparing your candidates for the exam, you might like to note the requirements of each of the questions. So just to make sure things are done effectively, which is basically what I've gone through today, because that is really what he was saying in the feedback. So just generically for question B, just to recap, 2 very short responses, no need to writing long sentences, no need for explanation. So for example, if it asks for 2 reasons for British interest in the Indian subcontinent, they can just say to trade, to get raw materials. That is enough. Now, question C, is a causation question. So that's the why. We looked at that. Rather than writing all about the what, it's really focusing on the why. And like I said, I really recommend that technique of using words in the question to get them going, to start their answer. So we looked at that. And then for question D, that's your judgment question that we just looked at. Candidates need to consider a number of factors. So they've got to weigh them up. They've got to weave that throughout their answer and decide which was the most important, which was the main one. The best rewarded ones will look at least 3 factors, maybe 4. But certainly you need 3 to get into those top levels. Okay, so we'll just take a 5-minute break and we'll come back and we'll look at paper 2. And I will see you in a few minutes. Thank you. Okay, well, hopefully you've had time to grab yourself a quick cup of water or something, but I do want to get on now and look at paper 2. Now you should be able to go. I saw a few people had put in the chat about today's PowerPoint, and you can certainly have that to keep there. So you go to the resources and you can click on that link and it will be there. So please feel free to do that, and then you can just download that to your own laptop and you'll be able to go back over it again, which is fine. So the other thing is on that in the PowerPoint, on the second slide, you've got the links to the Pearson help page, where it's got all the documents, the getting started guide, the schemes of work, your sample assessment materials. There's links to past papers, links to the examiner reports from this summer and previous summers as well. So all sorts of things on there that you'll find really super useful, I promise. I can't recommend that highly enough. Also go to your Pearson Rec if you do have any questions afterwards, and they will help you out as soon as possible. Okay, so let's move on and look at paper 2. I'm going to make no apologies for repeating my point from paper 1 about answering all the questions. It really is vital. Please, please don't let them be put off and get overwhelmed by a question they don't know. Have a go. Just tell, it really is important for them to answer all the questions. So paper 2, that's all of the questions. 1 on the physical environment and 1 on the human environment and 1 on challenges for Bangladesh. So if you think about what I said about the getting started guide, they also have a list there of the different meanings of the command words. And I mean, I think, a poster in the classroom is great there, or get them to, test them on that, whatever you want to do. We've got some nice little teacher tips and tricks as well on learning activities that you can use or not. These are just there to give you some help if you want it, and support if you want it. So for those of you that are new to this, really that first year, please use it to your heart's content. And for teachers that are have been doing it for a long time, well established, just pick out the bits that you need, but they really are useful. So I know I was banging a drum on that, so hopefully I've got that across, and you will at least go and have a look, because it is really really useful. So yeah, I don't think I'd said that there is a link there on you have to go into the Getting Started guide, and that's quite a lengthy document, and in it you do have the command words that they need to know. So you really need to be doing that. So hopefully you've got paper 2 on hand, so you can have a look at it. Again, I'm not giving answers to questions, just tips on, you know, well, I was going to say on what successful candidates did. With paper 2, I have actually had a bit of a think about what might candidates do wrong as well. So I might be able to give you a little bit more time to think about that. Okay, so what do successful candidates do? Well, they answered all the questions. Again, I'm repeating myself, but it was really necessary. They thought about what each answer was worth in terms of the marks. That means they then thought about how many examples had to be given, and that then gives them an idea of how long do I spend on this. And I'm sure you will go through that when you're doing your exam prep with them anyway. Successful candidates really demonstrated an understanding of the demands of the different question types. Now, there are more question types on paper 2, but bear in mind, 21 of the 25 marks are for C, D, E, and F. So clearly, they're not going to be spending half the time on questions A and B when the majority of the marks are for the questions C, D, E, and F. So you've got the link there. So when hopefully you've all downloaded the PowerPoint now, and you'll be able to go on and look at that later on. Tell your students to read the question thoroughly. They really need to crack the code of the question. What is the question asking them? What is required of them? Don't answer the question they want it to be. They have to answer the question that is there. We all know that they do that. So it's really getting that across to them. Okay. So looking at what successful candidates did, they did what the question said. So this paper included questions with I was talking to you about the command words that you want to go and have a look in the Getting Started guide. So it included questions with the command words assess and evaluate. Most candidates recognized this. They recognized these command words and they made an attempt to shape their answer to address this. This is what successful candidates do. So it was encouraging to see that candidates seemed well prepared for approaching questions with these different command words. So they'd often summarize their arguments, or perhaps they'd start with a sentence to attempt to address that command word. So if we look at 8-mark questions, there were lots of examples of 8-mark questions with clearly structured answers. And candidates have obviously been taught well here. The candidates were attempting to provide a balanced response to the question. Say, where it's human factors perhaps compared to physical factors. The most effective responses presented their main idea as an introductory sentence. So that might be a really good way of teaching that. Yeah, present their main idea as their introductory sentence and then reinforce that with a summary conclusion. And you'll find this in that Getting Started guide, where it gives you some, and also the schemes of work as well. I mean, you might call them schemes of learning, whatever you call them, but it's basically a plan to take you through. And space. And I think there's a couple of examples. I know there's one for paper 1 and paper 2, but I think there might be a couple of examples of doing it in different ways as well. Apologies if that's not the case. It is sometimes. But it's worth looking frequently anyway, because it's always updated, and that the teacher help packs are always updated anyway. So let's have a look at questions A and B. the key to success here was appreciating that there are 4 marks for these 2 questions. One of them gives data to help the candidates. Explanations not wanted. So basically get it answered and move on. That's really what we're looking for here. So they don't need to be given an explanation. They don't need to be writing in full sentences. So the most successful candidates don't spend more than a few minutes on the questions because they want to create time for the others. And it's really worth getting that over to them. Okay, so what do you think candidates might do wrong on this type of question? I'm not looking at specifics here, just general. I think, is this the question? This was from the summer, wasn't it? So it's just to give you an example of the type of question. So I'm not asking for what the characteristics are, but just what you think they might do wrong on this type of question. Well done, those of you that are popping that in the chat there. Yeah, basically, they just need to write about one characteristic. A couple of you put in the chat said we're a little bit more specific on the actual question, but I just give you an example of a type of question there. I wasn't actually wanting the actual answer, but what you do need to make sure they know is that, you know, where they're going to go wrong here is by wasting time writing about more than one characteristic, and they don't have the time for that in the exam. Okay, question D. What do you think candidates might do wrong on this type of question? So this says, suggest 2 ways individuals can respond to tropical cyclones. Again, I'm not looking at specifics, but what might candidates do wrong on this type of question? Thank you for your responses there. So, yeah, I mean, basically, the first thing is by not giving 2 ways. You know, not reading the question correctly, as someone's just said in the chat. Not looking at the word suggest, but certainly not giving 2 ways. And that way they're going to half their mark straight away if they just give 1 way. So they might not limit their answers to individuals. So they've really got to be able to pick out these keywords and understand what the question is asking. Like I call it cracking the code of the question, really knowing what that question is asking them. So that's really a useful learning technique anyway, isn't it? You know, giving them lots and lots of questions and just focus on what the question is asking you, not that, you know, not actually looking at the answers, but what is this question asking us to do? Okay, question E. What do you think candidates might do wrong on this type of question? So explain how renewable energy sources are being exploited in Bangladesh? Well, really, for this one, what might they do wrong here is really not limiting their answers to non-renewable energy sources of energy. Yeah. So yeah, well done. I think you're sort of getting what I'm saying now, which is great. So it's really cracking the code of those questions. So if we look at question F, what do you think candidates might do wrong on this type of question? So again, this is from the summer. Assess the extent that coastal flooding in Bangladesh is caused by physical factors. So what might they do wrong here? Well, what they could do is just write about coastal flooding without considering its causes. They might write about how physical factors might cause coastal flooding, but then ignore other factors. So what do they need to do here to reach the top marks? Well, if you look at the mark scheme says to reach the top marks in this question, they've got to provide a balanced, so they've got to weigh it up. It's got to be well developed. So yeah, so it has to be balanced. They've got to look at different factors. They've got to develop their argument. So balanced, well-developed argument that provides thorough consideration of factors, leading to judgments and a final conclusion that are well supported by evidence. So basically, they need to have at least, if you're looking for balance, they've got to have at least two factors. So it has to be at least two factors, and then they have to make a judgment. So that's what we're looking for there. Now, if we look at the examiner's report for this, again, you'll have this, and it really goes into lots of detail about each of the questions. But in general, just to sum up what I've looked at today, answer all of the questions. This is what successful candidates do. Answer all the questions. They are, tell them that they can ask for additional paper if they need to, but on the whole, they seem to write appropriately the right amount for each question. So I think that's been done well in schools. But they, if they want to write more, they shouldn't be scared to do that. The majority of this year's candidates cohort appeared really well prepared for the exam. So I'm talking there about their knowledge and understanding and their willingness to have a go. So I think, this is coming through now to have a go at the questions. Timing seems okay. There was little evidence that candidates weren't able to complete the paper in the time. So that's fine. we are seeing more and more that very few blank answers now. So they are attempting these questions. And actually, we're seeing more and more that the answers are relevant to the question. So just, they need to write in clear sentences. They need to write in paragraphs, those longer answers. Not for the longer answers, we don't want to be seeing just simply a list of points, because that has been an issue before. So we want to make sure that that isn't, and that seems to be certainly getting better. They're following structures better, especially for the ones, where there is more than 2 factors to consider. What they are doing, those ones where they just have to give one impact, say, they do tend to do more. So I think, that's really worth getting across, that they haven't got time for doing that. And then there's the command words, that you're now all going to go and have a look at your getting started guide, and have a really good look through. I know I've gone on about that, but have a really good look at that, and I know you'll be really pleased. Lamia, you've said about not being able to look at you might need to get your exam officer to get you through, but they should be able to log in. If you're looking just as if just anybody went and sort of went onto the website, they are locked, I think, for about a year post the exam. So, but you certainly can as one of our schools. So just get your exam officer to do that for you. Yeah, the other past papers open up a year afterwards, but for the first year post exam, it is just restricted to schools that are doing the exams with us, which is you, so you can. Okay. So yeah, the structure does matter for those longer ones. We like to see, do you remember I talked about weaving in and out with the making that precise knowledge, and then making those judgments throughout is, for the top level answers, is important. Okay, now we went through a lot there in the hour. So I would just like to thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you again. And thank you very much. Bye-bye.